Saturday Night Live, abbreviated as SNL, is an American late-night live television sketch comedy and variety show created by Lorne Michaels and developed by Dick Ebersol. The show premiered on NBC on October 11, 1975, under the original title NBC's Saturday Night. The show's comedy sketches, which parody contemporary culture and politics, are performed by a large and varying cast of repertory and newer cast members. Each episode is hosted by a celebrity guest, who usually delivers an opening monologue and performs in sketches with the cast, and features performances by a musical guest. An episode normally begins with a cold open sketch that ends with someone breaking character and proclaiming, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night," properly beginning the show. In 1980, Michaels left the series to explore other opportunities. He was replaced by Jean Doumanian, who was replaced by Ebersol after a season of bad reviews. Ebersol ran the show until 1985, when Michaels returned. Michaels has remained since then. Many of SNL's cast found national stardom while appearing on the show, and achieved success in film and television, both in front of and behind the camera. Others associated with the show, such as writers, have gone on to successful careers creating, writing, or starring in TV and film. Broadcast from Studio 8H at NBC's headquarters in the Comcast building, SNL has aired 829 episodes since its debut, and concluded its 42nd season on May 20, 2017, making it one of the longest-running network television programs in the United States. The show format has been developed and recreated in several countries, meeting with different levels of success. Successful sketches have seen life outside of the show as feature films, although only two met with critical and financial success: The Blues Brothers, 1980, and Wayne's World, 1992. The show has been marketed in other ways, including home media releases of best of and whole seasons, and books and documentaries about behind-the-scenes activities of running and developing the show. Throughout 4 decades on air, Saturday Night Live has received a number of awards, including 50 Primetime Emmy Awards, 2 Peabody Awards, and 3 Writers Guild of America Awards. In 2000, it was inducted into the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. It was ranked 10th in TV Guide's 50 Greatest TV Shows of All Time list, and in 2007 it was listed as one of Time magazine's 100 Best TV Shows of All Time. As of 2012, it has received 156 Emmy nominations, the most received by any TV show. The live aspect of the show has resulted in several controversies and acts of censorship, with mistakes and intentional acts of sabotage by performers as well as guests. Development From 1965 until September 1975, NBC ran the Best of Carson reruns of The Tonight Show, airing them on either Saturday or Sunday night at local affiliates' discretion. Originally known as the Saturday, Sunday Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. In 1974, Johnny Carson announced that he wanted the weekend shows pulled and saved so that they could be aired during weeknights, allowing him to take time off. In 1974, NBC President Herbert Schlosser approached his vice president of late-night programming, Dick Ebersol, and asked him to create a show to fill the Saturday night time slot. At the suggestion of Paramount Pictures executive Barry Diller, Schlosser and Ebersol then approached Lorne Michaels. Over the next 3 weeks, Ebersol and Michaels developed the latter's idea for a variety show featuring high-concept comedy sketches, political satire, and music performances. By 1975, Michaels had assembled a talented cast, including Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Chevy Chase, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Lorraine Newman, Michael O'Donoghue, Gilda Radner, and George Coe. The show was originally called NBC's Saturday Night, because Saturday Night Live was in use by Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell on the rival network ABC. NBC purchased the rights to the name in 1976 and officially adopted the new title on March 26, 1977. Debuting on October 11, 1975, the show immediately developed a cult following, eventually becoming a mainstream hit and spawning, in 1978, Best of Saturday Night Live compilations that reached viewers who could not stay awake for the live broadcasts. But during the first season in 1975 and 1976, according to a book about the show authored by Doug Hill and Jeff Weingrad, some NBC executives were not satisfied with the show's Nielsen ratings and shares. Lorne Michaels pointed out to them that Nielsen's measurement of demographics indicated that baby boomers constituted a large majority of the viewers who did commit to watching the show, and many of them watched little else on television. In 1975 and 1976, they were the most desired desirable demographic for television advertisers, even though Generation X was the right age for commercials for toys and other children's products. Baby boomers far outnumbered Generation X in reality but not in television viewership, with the exception of Michaels' new show and Major League Sports, and advertisers had long been concerned about baby boomers' distaste for the powerful medium. NBC executives eventually understood Michaels' explanation of the desirable demographics, and they decided to keep the show on the air despite many angry letters and phone calls that the network received from viewers who were offended by certain sketches. They included a weekend update segment on April 24, 1976, the 18th episode, that ridiculed Aspen, Colorado murder suspect Claudine Longett and warranted an on-air apology by announcer Don Pardo during the following episode. Chevy Chase left the show in November of the second season and was replaced a few months later by the then-unknown comic actor Bill Murray. Aykroyd and Belushi left the show in 1979 after the end of season 4. In May 1980, after season 5, Michaels, emotionally and physically exhausted, requested to put the show on hiatus for a year to give him time and energy to pursue other projects. Concerned that the show would be cancelled without him, Michaels suggested writers Al Franken, Tom Davis, and Jim Downey as his replacements. NBC president Fred Silverman disliked Franken, however, and was infuriated by Franken's weekend update routine called Limo for a Lamo, a scathing critique of Silverman's job performance at the network and his insistence on traveling by limousine at the network's expense. Silverman blamed Michaels for approving this weekend update segment. Unable to get the deal he wanted, Michaels chose to leave NBC for Paramount Pictures, intending to take his associate producer, Jean Doumanian, with him. Michaels later learned that Doumanian had been given his position at SNL after being recommended by her friend, NBC Vice President Barbara Gallagher. Michaels' departure led to most of the cast and writing staff leaving the show. The reputation of the show as a springboard to fame meant that many aspiring stars were eager to join the new series. Doumanian was tasked with hiring a full cast and writing staff in less than 3 months, and NBC immediately cut the show's budget from the previous $1 million per episode down to just $350,000. Doumanian faced resentment and sabotage from the remaining Michaels staff, particularly males who did not appreciate a woman believing she could take Michaels' place. The season was a disaster, ratings plummeted, and audiences failed to connect to the original cast's replacements, such as Charles Rocket and Ann Risley. Doumanian's fate was sealed when, during a sketch, Rocket said fuck on live television. After only 10 months, Doumanian was dismissed. Although executives suggested that SNL be left to die, network chief Brandon Tartikoff wanted to keep the show on the air, believing that the concept was more important to the network than money. Tartikoff turned to Ebersol as his choice for the new producer. Ebersol previously had been fired by Silverman. Ebersol gained Michaels' approval in an attempt to avoid the same staff sabotage that had blighted Doumanian's tenure. Ebersol's tenure saw commercial success, but was considered lackluster compared to the Michaels era, except for the breakout of cast member Eddie Murphy. Murphy, the main draw of the cast, left in 1984 to pursue his already successful film career, and Ebersol decided to again rebuild the cast. He broke with history by hiring established comedians such as Billy Crystal and Martin Short who could bring their already successful material to the show. Ebersol's final year with this new cast is considered one of the series' funniest, but had strayed far from the precedent-shattering show that Michaels had created. After that season, Ebersol wanted a more significant revamp, including departing from the show's established live format. Following unsuccessful forays into film and television, in need of money, and eager not to see Tartikoff cancel the show, Michaels finally returned in 1985 after Ebersol opted not to. The show was again recast, with Michaels borrowing Ebersol's idea, and seeking out established actors such as Joan Cusack and Robert Downey, Jr. The cast and writers struggled creatively, and in April 1986, Tartikoff made the decision to cancel the show, until he was convinced by producer Bernie Brillstein to give it one more year. The show was renewed but for the first time in its history, for only 13 episodes instead of the usual 22. Michaels again fired most of the cast and, learning his lesson from the previous seasons, sought out unknown talent such as Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman instead of known names. The show ran successfully again until it lost Carvey and Hartman, two of its biggest stars, between 1992 and 1994. The show faced increasing criticism from the press and cast, in part encouraged by the NBC executives hoping to weaken Michaels' position. Michaels received a lucrative offer to develop a Saturday night project for CBS during this time, but remained loyal to SNL. By 1995, Farley and Sandler were fired, and Mike Myers, another popular cast member, had left for a film career, but a new cast waited to replace them, featuring the likes of Will Ferrell, Jimmy Fallon, and Tina Fey. The show focused on performers, and writers were forced to supply material for the cast's existing characters before before they could write original sketches. By 1997, Ohlmeyer renewed his focus on limiting Michaels' independence, forcing the removal of writer Jim Downey and cast member Norm Macdonald. Cast and crew cast The original 1975 cast of SNL, officially known on air as the Not Ready for Primetime Players, a term coined by writer Herb Sargent, included Lorraine Newman, John Belushi, Jane Curtin, Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, Garrett Morris, and Chevy Chase. Radner was the first person hired after Michaels himself. Although Chase became a performer, he was hired on a one-year writer contract, and refused to sign the performer contract that was repeatedly given to him, allowing him to leave the show after the first season in 1976. Newman was brought aboard after having a prior working relationship with Michaels. Morris was initially brought in as a writer, but attempts to have him fired by another writer led Michaels to have Morris audition for the cast, where he turned in a successful performance. Curtin and Belushi were the last two cast members hired. Belushi had a disdain for television and had repeatedly turned down offers to appear on other shows, but decided to work with the show because of the involvement of Radner, and writers Ann Beatts and Michael O'Donoghue. Michaels was still reluctant to hire Belushi, believing he would be a source of trouble for the show, but Beatts, O'Donoghue, and Ebersol successfully argued for his inclusion. After Chase left the show, he was replaced by Bill Murray, whom Michaels had intended to hire for the first season cast, but was unable to because of budget restrictions. When Chase returned to host in 1978, he found the remaining cast resentful at his departure and his success, particularly Belushi. Murray, goaded by the rest of the cast, and Chase came to blows shortly before the show. Michaels began to struggle to hold the remaining cast together in the wake of Chase, Aykroyd, and Belushi's independent successes. Radner had a one-woman Broadway show and Murray starred in the 1979 comedy Meatballs. In 1980, when Michaels chose to leave the series to pursue other interests, he was followed by the remaining original cast, Curtin, Newman, and Morris, Murray, and additional cast members. The Doumanian-era cast faced immediate comparison to the beloved former cast and were not received favorably. Ebersol fired the majority of her hires, except for two unknown comedians, Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo. Talent coordinator Neil Levy claimed Murphy contacted and pleaded with him for a role on the show, and after seeing him audition, Levy fought with Doumanian to cast him instead of Robert Townsend. Doumanian wanted only one black cast member and favored Townsend, but Levy convinced her to choose Murphy. Doumanian, however, also claimed credit for discovering Murphy and fighting with NBC executives to bring him onto the show. Even so, Murphy would languish as a background character until Ebersol took charge, after which Murphy was credited with much of that era's success. Murphy's star exploded, and he quickly appeared in films such as 48 HRS and Trading Places, before leaving for his film career in early 1984. Much of the Ebersol cast departed after the 1983-84 season and were replaced with established comedians who could supply their own material, but at an inflated cost. Billy Crystal and Martin Short were paid $25,000 and $20,000 per episode respectively, a far cry from earlier salaries. Michaels' return in 1985 saw a cast reset that featured established talent such as Robert Downey Jr., John Lovitz and Dennis Miller. The season was poorly received, and another reset followed in 1986. Learning his lesson from the previous season, Michaels avoided known talent in favor of actual ability. He kept Lovitz, Miller and Nora Dunn, and brought in new, untested talent such as Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, and Jan Hooks, who together would define a new era on the show into the early 1990s. In 1989-90, new talent such as Mike Myers, Adam Sandler, and Chris Farley were added. Afraid of cast members leaving for film careers, Michaels had overcrowded the cast, causing a divide between the veteran members and the new, younger talent, increasing competition for limited screen time. By 1995, Carvey and Hartman had left, taking with them a virtual army of characters. Myers quit for his movie career, and increasing network pressure forced Michaels to fire Sandler and Farley. The show saw its next major overhaul, bringing in a new cast including Will Ferrell, Tina Fey, and Jimmy Fallon. While cast members would leave over the following 2 decades, the show saw its next biggest transition in 2013, with the addition of 6 cast members to compensate for the departure of several longtime cast members like Bill Hader, Jason Sudeikis, and Fred Armisen. SNL has featured over 140 cast members including, besides the above-mentioned players, Rachel Dratch, Amy Poehler, Chris Rock, David Spade, Will Forte, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Tracy Morgan, Chris Parnell, Maya Rudolph, Andy Samberg, Kristen Wiig, and many others. Daryl Hammond is the longest-serving cast member, having been a part of the cast for 14 years between 1995 and 2009, and returned in 2014 as the show's announcer following the death of Don Pardo. Many of the Weekend Update hosts have gone on to find greater success outside of the show, including Chase, Curtin, Murray, Miller, McDonald, Faye, Fallon, and Poehler. From 2008, Seth Meyers was the solo host of Weekend Update, before being partnered with Cecily Strong in 2013. After Meyers left for Late Night with Seth Meyers in February 2014, Strong was paired with head writer Colin Yost. The cast is divided into two tiers, the more established group of repertory players, and newer, unproven cast members known as featured players, who may eventually be promoted to the repertory stable. The cast were often contracted from anywhere between 5 and 6 years to the show, but starting with the 1999-2000 season, new hires were tied to a rewritten contract that allowed NBC to take a cast member in at least their second year and put them in an NBC sitcom. Cast are given the option of rejecting the first two sitcom offers but must accept the third offer, with the sitcom contract length dictated by NBC and potentially lasting up to 6 years. The move drew criticism from talent agents and managers who believed that a cast member could be locked into a contract with NBC for 12 years, 6 on SNL and then 6 on a sitcom. The contract also optioned the cast member for 3 feature films produced by SNL Films, a company owned by NBC, Paramount Pictures, and Michaels. The new contracts were reportedly developed after many previously unknown cast, such as Myers and Sandler, gained fame on SNL only to leave and make money for other studios. In a 2010 interview, Wiig was reported to be contracted to SNL for a total of 7 years. The contracts also contain a network option which allows NBC to remove a cast member at any time. In the first season of the show, cast were paid $750 per episode, rising to $2,000 by season 2, and $4,000 by season 4. By the late 1990s, new cast members received a salary between $5,000 and $5,500 per episode, increasing to $6,000 in the second year and up to $12,500 for a cast member in their 5th year. Performers could earn an additional $1,500 per episode for writing a sketch which made it to air. In 2001, Farrell became the highest paid cast member, being paid $350,000 per season, approximately $17,500 per episode. In 2014, Sashir Zamata was added as a cast member in mid-season after criticism about the show's lack of an African-American woman. Writers. As of the 2013-14 season, Colin Yost and Rob Klein are the show's co-head writers. Myers had been co-head writer since 2005 and became the single head writer from 2008 to 2012. The Weekend Update segment has its own dedicated team of writers led by head writer and producer Alex Bays as of the 2011-12 season. Scenes on Weekend Update that involve members of the cast acting in character alongside the host are often written by staff writers outside of the dedicated Weekend Update team, who know those characters better. SNL writers are often also performers or experienced in writing and improvisational comedy. Many are hired from similar backgrounds such as The Groundlings, Second City, Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, and Improv Olympic. Comedian Jim Downey was head writer for 9 years beginning in 1985. Experienced writers with backgrounds in television shows are also sometimes brought into the SNL writing room. In 2000, Tina Fey became the first female SNL head writer and successfully made the transition to starring on the show, as well as writing and starring in feature films, and ultimately creating and starring in her own show 30 Rock, partly based on her SNL experiences. In 2005, Fey was being paid $1.5 million per season for her dual role as head writer and performer. Announcers. Don Pardo served as the announcer for the series when it began and continued in the role for all but season 7 between 1981 and 1982, when Michaels had left and Mel Brandt and Bill Hanrahan filled the announcing role. In 2004, Pardo announced that he would step down from his position, but then continued in the role until 2009 where he again announced his retirement, but then continued into the 2009-10 season. In 2010, then 92-year-old Pardo was reported to be again considering his retirement, but continued to serve as announcer until his death at age 96 on August 18, 2014, following the 39th season. Apart from a brief period in 2006 in which Pardo pre-recorded his announcements at his home in Arizona, he flew to New York City to perform his announcing duties live. Cast members Joe Piscopo and Darrell Hammond also periodically impersonated Pardo and fulfilled his announcing duties when Pardo was unavailable. Hammond took over as full-time announcer starting with season 40. Hosts and musical guests A typical episode of SNL will feature a single host chosen for their popularity or novelty, or because they have a film, album, or other work being released near the time of their appearance on the show. The host delivers the opening monologue and performs in sketches with the cast. Traditionally, the host of the show ends the opening monologue by introducing the musical guest for the night. Comedian George Carlin was the first to host SNL in the debut October 1975 episode. 3 episodes later, Candice Bergen became the first female host and subsequently the first to host more than once. Hosts have been drawn from a wide spectrum of backgrounds, from actors, such as Christopher Walken, Buck Henry, and John Goodman, to musicians like Dolly Parton, to political activist Ralph Nader. Guests who have hosted 5 or more times are sometimes referred to as belonging to the Five-Timers Club, a term that originated on a sketch performed on Tom Hanks' 5th episode. As of February 11, 2017, actor Alec Baldwin holds the record for most times hosting, having performed the duty on 17 different occasions since 1990. Baldwin took the record from actor Steve Martin, who had hosted 15 times since 1976. Each episode also features a musical guest, a solo act or a band, who perform 2 to 3 musical numbers. Occasionally, the musical guest has also simultaneously served as the host. As of May 19, 2012, Dave Grohl is the most frequent musical guest, performing on 11 shows since 1992. Michaels does not allow musical guests to perform using lip-syncing tracks, believing it diminishes the live aspect of the show. Exceptions are only made when the musical act is focused on intense dance routines instead of vocals, where it is difficult to be both heavily physically active and sing simultaneously. A 1975 performance by pop group ABBA was the first and only act to feature lip-syncing, until the controversial 2004 performance of Ashlee Simpson. The SNL Band The Saturday Night Live Band, also known as the Live Band, is the house band for SNL. Academy Award-winning composer Howard Shore served as the first musical director, from 1975 to 1980, appearing in many musical sketches, including Howard Shore and his All-Nurse Band and, backing a U.S. Coast Guard chorus, Howard Shore and the Shore Patrol. Smith, musical director from 1985 to 1995. The band is currently under the leadership of Tower of Power alumnus Lenny Pickett, keyboardist Leon Pendarvis and Eli Brueggemann, who does not play in the band on the live show. The 1983, 1984 and 1984-1985 seasons featured the smallest band, a 6-piece combo. The band plays instrumentals leading in and out of station breaks. Affiliates who run no advertising during these interludes hear the band play complete songs behind a Saturday Night Live bumper graphic until the program resumes. The band plays closing theme, Waltz in A, written by Shore, at the end of the show. Production The studio Since the show's inception, SNL has aired from Studio 8H, located on floors 8 and 9 of the Comcast Building, formerly the RCA Building and GE Building, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, or 30 Rock. The studio had originally been used as a radio soundstage for Arturo Toscanini and the NBC Symphony Orchestra. Michaels was dumbfounded when he originally inspected Studio 8H in 1975, and found it technically limited, outdated, in need of repair, and lacking the capacity to host a live show. Michaels demanded that NBC executives rebuild the studio and improve the acoustics to accommodate the intended musical acts, at a cost of approximately $300,000. 3 of the first 4 shows of the 1976-77 season were shot at the former NBC studios in Brooklyn, due to NBC News using Studio 8H for presidential election coverage. During the summer 2005 shooting hiatus, crews began renovations on Studio 8H. With its 31st season premiere in October 2005, the show began broadcasting in high-definition television, appearing letterboxed on conventional television screens. The offices of SNL writers, producers, and other staff can be found on the 17th floor of 30 Rock. Creating an episode Production on an SNL episode will normally start on a Monday with a free-form pitch meeting between the cast, writers, producers including Michaels, and the guest host, in Michaels' office, over 2 hours. The host is invited to pitch ideas during this meeting. Although some sketch writing may occur on the day, the bulk of the work revolves around pitching ideas. Tuesday is the only day dedicated purely to writing the scripts, a process process which usually extends through the night into the following morning. Writing may not begin until 8 p.m. on the Tuesday evening. At this point there may be at least 40 sketch ideas which are read through in turn, lasting upwards of 3 hours. After completion of the read-through, Michaels, the head writer, the guest host, and some of the show producers will move to Michaels' office to decide the layout of the show and decide which of the sketches will be developed for air. Once complete, the writers and cast are allowed into Michaels' office to view the show breakdown and learn whether or not their sketch has survived. Sketches may be rewritten starting the same day, but will certainly commence on Thursday. Work focuses on developing and rewriting the remaining sketches, and possibly rehearsals. If a sketch is still scheduled beyond Thursday, it is rehearsed on Friday or Saturday before moving to a rehearsal before a live audience at 8 p.m., again on Saturday before the live show. After the rehearsal, Michaels will review the show lineup to ensure it meets a 90-minute length, and sketches that have made it as far as the live rehearsal may be removed. This often results in less than 2 days of rehearsal for the 8 to 12 sketches that have made it to the stage that then may appear on the live broadcast. The opening monologue, spoken by the guest host, is given low priority and can be written as late as Saturday afternoon. According to an interview with Faye in 2004, the 3 to 4 member dedicated Weekend Update writing team will write jokes throughout the week. The hosts of Weekend Update will normally not work with, or read the scripts from, the team until Thursday evening. After the main show sketches have been finalized, the hosts will then work on contributing to the script where necessary. Post-production with on-site facilities housed on floors 8 and 17 of Rockefeller Plaza. Post-production duties on live broadcasts of Saturday Night Live include the mixing of audio and video elements by the senior audio mixer, coupled with additional audio feeds consisting of music, sound effects, music scoring and pre-recorded voiceovers. All sources are stored digitally, with shows captured and segregated into individual elements to reorganize for future repeats and syndication. The production tracking system was migrated from primarily analog to digital in 1998, with live shows typically requiring 1.5 terabytes of storage, consisting of audio elements and 5 cameras worth of visual elements. Elements of Saturday Night Live that are pre-recorded, such as certain commercial parodies, SNL digital shorts, and show graphics are processed off-site in the post-production facilities of Broadway Video. Filming and photography Studio 8H production facilities are maintained by NBC Production Services. Video camera equipment includes 4 Sony BVP 700 CCD cameras, and 2 Sony BVP 750 CCD handheld cameras, both using Vinton pedestals, a GVG 4000-3 digital component production switcher, and GVG 7000 digital component routing switcher are used to route visual feeds to the control room, with multiple digital and analog video recorders used to store footage. Graphics are provided by a Chiron Lyric Pro character generator and an Avid Deco character generator. Audio facilities consist of a Calrec T-Series digitally controlled analog mixing console, and a Yamaha digital mixing console used for tape playback support and utility audio work. While exact budgets for other seasons are not known, the 39th season, 2013-2014, had a budget of just over $70 million, for which it received a subsidy from New York State in the amount of $12.3 million. As of 2009, the opening title sequence and opening montage is shot using the Canon EOS 5D Mark II and Canon EOS 7D digital SLR cameras. Typical elements are recorded at 30 fps, with slow motion sequences shot at 60 fps, both in full 1080p high definition. Edie Baskin was the original SNL photographer. She was hired after Michaels saw her photographs of Las Vegas and other work. Baskin helped create the opening title sequence for the show by taking photos of New York City at night. The first episode used publicity photos of Carlin as transitional bumpers between the show and commercial breaks. The second episode used photos Baskin had already taken of host Paul Simon. It was then that Michaels suggested that Baskin photograph the hosts for the bumpers instead of using publicity photos, beginning a tradition which continues today. Since 1999, Mary Ellen Matthews has been the official photographer of SNL, responsible for devising distinctive photo layouts and aesthetics for still imagery used on the show. Matthews creates photo portraits of the hosts and musical guests of each episode which are used as commercial bumpers. Matthews employs flattering portrait lighting with hard lights to achieve a Hollywood style. I try to achieve that depth as much as I can. Matthews is also responsible for taking cast photos, behind-the-scenes images, documenting rehearsals, and promotional photos. As of 2010, she has also been involved in directing videos, including the show title sequence == broadcast ==. The show usually begins at 11:29:30 p.m. Eastern Time, unless a delay occurs, more commonly, due to sporting events that run past 11 p.m. Eastern, delaying local newscasts that lead into that week's SNL broadcast on most NBC stations. The show broadcasts for 92 minutes, counting commercial breaks, ending at 1:02 a.m. for the Mountain except for KSNG, KSNK, and KQCD, and Pacific time zones. NBC airs the pre-recorded live show usually unedited, mistakes notwithstanding. Since the first opening in 1975 with Michael O'Donoghue, Chevy Chase, and John Belushi, the show has normally begun with a cold open sketch which ends with one or more cast members breaking character and proclaiming live from New York, "It's Saturday night," segueing into the opening credits that start immediately after. In February 2013, NBC began airing shortened hour-long repeats on Saturday evenings at 10 p.m. Eastern Time during the regular season. The episodes scheduled are sometimes rebroadcasts of the previous week's episode if it originally aired as a first-run broadcast. During the 2014-15 season, however, the primetime rebroadcasts consisted of a selection of 40 episodes from throughout the show's run under the title SNL Vintage to commemorate the program's 40th anniversary. NBC and Broadway Video both hold the underlying rights to the show, while the copyright to every episode lies solely with NBC. From 1990 until 2004, and again since 2015, Comedy Central and its predecessor re-aired reruns of the series, after which Entertainment Television signed a deal to carry reruns. Abbreviated 30 and 60-minute versions of the first 5 seasons aired as the best of Saturday Night Live in syndication beginning in the 1980s, and later on Nick at Night in 1988. In September 2010, reruns of most episodes made from 1998 onward began airing on VH1. Starting in February 2016, VH1 and Comedy Central's sister channel Logo began airing reruns of the show on Sunday nights, launching its broadcast as counter-programming for Super Bowl 50 and branding it the Live from New York, It's Saturday Night Marathon. The reruns are mostly from 2006 onward. On March 16, 2017, NBC announced that it would air the final 4 episodes of the 42nd season live in all time zones for the first time in its history. NBC executive Robert Greenblatt explained that the show's significant viewership had made it part of the national conversation, and thus they felt that it would be appropriate for the entire country to be in on the joke at the same time. International Because SNL has been a huge success in America, channels in other countries have created their own versions of the show, including in the Middle East and North Africa region, Germany, Spain, South Korea, Japan, Canada, Finland and France. SNL is also aired in the Middle East and North Africa, OSN First HD every Saturday night, 1 week after it airs in the US. In India and Sri Lanka, Saturday Night Live airs on Comedy Central, in an hour-long version, 1 week after the US broadcast. Spain's version of the show was short-lived, only lasting a few episodes which aired on Thursdays and not Saturdays as the title suggested. This version copied heavily from the American version, in that they did their own versions of sketches that were already done on the original series. Italy's Saturday Night Live from Milan aired for 4 seasons and used original material. On December 3, 2011, South Korea's SNL Korea premiered on cable channel TVN. As of July 20, 2013, it is in its 4th consecutive season, with 20 episodes. The Japanese version Saturday Night Live JPN, which ran for 6 months in 2011, was created in part with Lorne Michaels' production company, Coca-Cola, Broadway Video and broadcast on Fuji TV networks. The show followed the same format with a few minor differences, being only 45 minutes long and hosted by a permanent host. The cast was made up of seasoned comedians who take center stage and newcomers who play the background roles. It was broadcast once a month, and ended after 6 episodes, as planned from the start. Certain sketches from the original program, such as Debbie Downer and Sweaty Balls, were adapted into French, while other sketches were original material written directly for the Quebec series. On May 13, 2014, SNL Quebec was renewed for another 8 episodes to be broadcast monthly over the 2014-15 season, ending with a best of compilation. TALA Quebec announced in May 2015 that the series would not be renewed due to funding cutbacks, and Acute Vision de Radio Canada subsequently signed the show's production team and cast to produce a new series, Le Nouveau Show, for that network. The French channel M6 launched the pilot episode of its SNL adaptation, Le Saturday Night Live. In January 2017, SNL program items are available from the NBC website and YouTube in the US, but are blocked to many overseas, non-US, viewers. Delays. The episode scheduled for October 25, 1986, hosted by Rosanna Arquette, was not aired until November 8 due to NBC broadcasting Game 6 of the 1986 World Series between the New York Mets and Boston Red Sox. The game entered extra innings, causing that night's broadcast of SNL to be canceled. The show was recorded for the studio audience starting at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and broadcast 2 weeks later with an apology by Mets pitcher Ron Darling. The episode, scheduled for February 10, 2001, hosted by Jennifer Lopez, aired 45 minutes late due to an XFL game. Lopez and the cast were not told they were airing on a delay. Reception. In 2002, SNL was ranked 10th on TV Guide's 50 Greatest TV Shows of All Time, while in 2007 it was honored with inclusion on Time magazine's list of 100 Best TV Shows of All Time. In June 2013, the show was placed at number 25 on the list of the 101 Best Written Shows of All Time by the Writers Guild of America, assessing series from the previous 70 years. In December 2013, TV Guide ranked it 18 on their list of the 60 greatest shows of all time. It is currently the 40th longest-running TV show in the U.S. In 2016, a New York Times study of the 50 TV shows with the most Facebook likes found that SNL is very much an urban show. It's most popular in cities throughout the country, and college towns. Amherst, Mass., Madison, Wis, and Ithaca, NY are all among the top 10. Accolades. Saturday Night Live has won numerous awards since its debut, including 45 Primetime Emmy Awards, 2 Peabody Awards, and 4 Writers Guild of America Awards. In 2009, it received a total of 13 Emmy nominations for a lifetime total of 126, breaking the record for the most award-nominated show in Emmy history, previously set with 124 by Hospital Drama. As of August 2012, it had received a record total of 156 Emmy nominations. 19 cast members have received individual Emmy nominations in the show's history. These nominations were mostly in the category of individual performance in a variety or music program before that award was discontinued. Since then, nominations have been in the supporting actor and supporting actress categories for comedy series. Of the 36 total nominations for these 19 performers, 4 have won Emmys: Chevy Chase, 1976, Gilda Radner, 1978, Dana Carvey, 1993, and Kate McKinnon, 2016. Electoral effect. SNL has also had an effect on U.S. elections, most commonly presidential elections. Voters have reported that political sketches that were shown on the program influenced them in the voting booth. The so-called SNL effect was observed during the 2008 presidential campaign. According to Mike Dougherty, 2/3 of voters who responded to a poll said they had seen a broadcast of politically charged content on SNL, with 10% saying that it had made a difference in their decision. Barack Obama was the beneficiary of the political content, with 59% saying they did in fact cast a vote for the Democratic then nominee. Senator Obama's appearance occurred in part because Hillary Clinton abandoned her scheduled appearance. The political content was abandoned briefly following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack in New York, with Poehler saying that the writers did not want to produce politicized material. Highly political content would be absent for the next 4 years. Controversies. Due to the show's live factor, a number of technical problems, performer mishaps, intentional acts of sabotage by performers, protests, and cuts to dead air have occurred throughout the show's run. One incident that garnered widespread media coverage was the October 3, 1992 appearance by singer Sinead O'Connor, in which she ripped up a photo of Pope John Paul II during her performance. On April 13, 1996, the alternative metal band Rage Against the Machine made a statement about the host, billionaire Steve Forbes, by hanging 2 upside-down American flags from their amplifiers. On October 23, 2004, Ashlee Simpson appeared as a musical guest, and there was a lip-syncing mishap. Her first performance, Pieces of Me, was performed without incident, but when she began her second song, Autobiography, the vocals for Pieces of Me were heard again through the speakers, even before she had raised the microphone to her mouth. Simpson began to do an impromptu jig, and then left the stage. In other media. Home media. Currently, Universal Studios Home Entertainment and Lionsgate Entertainment hold video rights to the series. Universal has issued complete season DVD sets of the first few seasons seasons, while Lionsgate's share of the rights are a result of prior contracts with NBC struck before the NBC-Universal merger. A majority of Lionsgate's SNL DVDs are best of compilations. Books Saturday Night Live, ISBN 0-380-01801-2. The first authorized book about the series was published by Avon Books in 1977 and edited by Ann Beatts and John Head, with photography by Edie Baskin. All three worked for SNL at the time the book was published. The oversized illustrated paperback included the scripts for several sketches by the 1975 to 1980 cast. In 1986, Doug Hill and Jeff Weingrad authored Saturday Night, a backstage history of Saturday Night Live, ISBN 0-688-05099-9, a behind-the-scenes look at the first 10 seasons. Saturday Night Live, the first 20 years, ISBN 0-395-75284-1, by Michael Catter, was released in 1994, and presented information about the cast, characters, and other memorable moments seen on the show from 1975 to 1994. Live from New York, an uncensored history of Saturday Night Live, as told by its stars, writers and guests, ISBN 0-316-73565-5, was released in 2002. The book, written by Tom Shales and James Andrew Miller, consists of interviews from people who have worked on the show. The interviews reveal personal experiences from what happened backstage and the difficulty of getting the show on air each week. In 2004, former cast member Jay Moore released his memoir Gasping for Airtime, 2 Years in the Trenches of Saturday Night Live, ISBN 1-401-30801-5, about his struggles during his 2 seasons on the show between 1993 and 1995, dealing with getting sketches on air and the intense work schedule. Cast member Bobby Moynihan described the book as a handbook on what not to do at SNL. Films SNL has made several efforts to develop some of the more popular sketches into feature-length films, with varying degrees of commercial and critical success. The first foray into film came with the successful Aykroyd and Belushi vehicle, The Blues Brothers, 1980, which earned over $115 million on a $27 million budget. In 1990, Michaels oversaw the writing of a sketch anthology feature film titled The Saturday Night Live Movie with many of the show's then current writing staff, including Al Franken, Tom Davis, Greg Daniels, Jim Downey, Conan O'Brien, Robert Smigel, and George Meyer, contributing. The screenplay only got as far as a revised first draft dated July 26, 1990 before being abandoned. However, it was the success of Wayne's World, 1992, that encouraged Michaels to produce more film spin-offs, based on several popular sketch characters. Michaels revived 1970s characters for Coneheads, 1993, followed by It's Pat, 1994, Stuart Saves His Family, 1995, A Night at the Roxbury, 1998, Superstar, 1999, and The Ladies' Man, 2000. Many of these films were produced by Paramount Pictures. The films based on the Blues Brothers were produced by Universal Studios, which merged with NBC in 2004 to form NBC Universal. Universal also has a joint venture with Paramount for international distribution of the two studios' films. The character Bob Roberts from the Tim Robbins film of the same name, 1992, first appeared on SNL in a short film about the conservative folk singer. In addition, the 1999 comedy film Office Space originated from a series of animated short films by Mike Judge that aired on SNL in 1993. The fictitious American folk music trio the Folksmen first appeared on SNL, performing the song Old Joe's Place before later appearing in the film A Mighty Wind, 2002. The 3 members of the Folksmen were the same 3 comedians, Harry Shearer, Michael McKean, and Christopher Guest, who also appeared on the same episode as the rock group Spinal Tap. At the time of the appearance, the 1984-85 season, Shearer and Guest were cast members. Mr. Bill's real-life adventures is based off the Mr. Bill sketches from early seasons of SNL. Music In 2005, the comedy troupe The Lonely Island, consisting of SNL members Andy Samberg, Akiva Schaffer, and Jorma Taccone, gained national exposure after joining the show and debuting their comedic music video Lazy Sunday, written with fellow cast member Chris Parnell. The song became a surprise hit, and convinced Michaels to encourage the troupe to develop more comedy songs. The albums were released by Universal Republic Records, who were provided with a license to the SNL songs by NBC and Broadway Video. A cast album was released in 1976 on the Arista label including the song Chevy movies, girls, and comedy bits from the show. Weekend Update, Emily Latella, Gun Control. It was later reissued on CD and MP3 download. Other. Several programs have documented the behind-the-scenes events of the show. A 60 Minutes report taped in October 2004 depicted the intense writing frenzy that goes on during the week leading up to a show, with crowded meetings and long hours. The report particularly noted the involvement of the guest hosts in developing and selecting the sketches in which they will appear. Similarly, there has been an A&E episode of Biography which covered the production process, as well as an episode of TV Tales in 2002 on E! In 2010, Saturday Night, a 94-minute documentary by actor James Franco in his directorial debut, was released. It follows the production process of the December 6, 2008, episode hosted by John Malkovich, from the concept stage to the episode actually airing live. Although it originated as a 5-minute short film for Franco's New York University film class, Michaels granted Franco access to the process, allowing the project to be expanded. On February 15, 2015, NBC aired a 3.5-hour special on Saturday Night Live's 40th anniversary. The program included a mix of clips, new performances of classic characters from previous cast members and special guest appearances from previous hosts. In September 2011, ice cream company Ben & Jerry's released a limited edition ice cream called Sweaty Balls, inspired by a 1998 sketch of the same name starring Alec Baldwin, Anna Gasteyer and Molly Shannon. The ice cream became the fastest-selling Ben & Jerry's limited edition flavor. The ice cream was also subject to criticism and boycotts by the 1 Million Moms organization over the vulgar name. Some retail chains chose not to sell the flavor, but declined to say if the decision was at their own discretion or based on the 1 Million Moms boycotts. In June 2014, 2 new flavors inspired by SNL sketches were introduced: Lazy Sunday, based on a sketch of the same name featuring Andy Samberg and Chris Parnell, and Gilly's Catastrophic Crunch, based on the recurring Gilly sketches featuring Kristen Wiig. 2 Wild and Crazy Pies, based on the catchphrase of the recurring Fest-Drunk brothers, was introduced in September 2014, followed by Wayne's World inspired by the eponymous Wayne's World in February 2015. See also List of recurring Saturday Night Live characters and sketches. Saturday Night Live parodies of Hillary Clinton. Saturday Night Live parodies of Sarah Palin. Saturday Night Live parodies of Donald Trump. References. Bibliography. Moore, J. 2004. Gasping for Airtime. 2 Years in the Trenches of Saturday Night Live. New York, Hyperion Books. ISBN 1-4013-00006-5. Hill, Doug. Weingrad, Jeff. 1986. Saturday Night, A Backstage History of Saturday Night Live. New York, Beechtree Books. ISBN 0-688-05099-9. Shales, Tom, Miller, James Andrew. 2002. Live from New York, An Uncensored History of Saturday Night Live. New York, Hachette Book Group USA. ISBN 0-316-73565-5. Further reading. External links. Official website. Official Broadway video webpage. Saturday Night Live at the Internet Movie Database. Saturday Night Live at TV.com. Saturday Night Live Video Archive at Yahoo! Screen. Saturday Night Live related interview videos at the Archive of American Television. Saturday Night Live at DMOZ.